So what I wanted to do is just share with you a couple of kind of use cases also in production. Because as we've seen so many times today, this is, I mean, not future cases. I mean, people are using it right now. And one thing, and we have mentioned this word so many times here, you know, there's a lot of hype going on at the moment. I mean, there's so many kind of clever and creative use cases out there. I mean, we have cloned voices, for example, in different media organizations, like this South African voice here, trained on one of their journalists. We have public service media companies like RTVE from Spain having a kind of a music presenter talking and presenting songs. They call it Hyperia. And speaking about buzz, we have this tremendous company in Sweden called Spotify. And I've never seen so many buzzwords in a press release as when I read their press release a couple of weeks ago, when they were introducing their AI DJ that they're now beta testing in the US. I mean, it was generative AI, it was synthetic voice in there, all these kind of buzzwords, you know. Of course, to be associated with these kind of techniques, as we've seen on the stock market price of Microsoft, it's very lucrative business if you tap into the right strand of it. So basically, they also have this synthetic voice trained on one of their music DJs, who comes in between songs and chats a little bit about the song, presents facts about it, and of course, in a very personalized way. So if you agree, and when I get have gotten my PowerPoint going now, it's always embarrassing to show PowerPoint after Bo Bergstedt from TV2, you know. But if you don't mind, I will take you on a little tour around the world or around Europe with some of the use cases in production as the bridge to your speeches. We're going to talk about automated weather reports, football voices. We're going to talk about using synthetic voice for voiceovers. We're going to talk about some of the also generative AI cases related to audio. So I'm going to start with a very wholesome German use case. Yeah? There's a public service broadcaster called RBB in Berlin, part of the ARD network. And they don't have a weather service in-house, but they want audio weather reports in their app. So basically, they have every 15 minutes, they have a weather report presented by a synthetic voice, and the synthetic voice has been trained on one of their well-known presenters. So people feel at ease. So imagine you were in the Berlin area and wanted a little weather report. It would sound like this.
Morgen wechselnd bewölkt und einige Schauer, vereinzelt Gewitter. Höchstwerte 20 Grad in Korin bis 23 Grad in Lauchhammer, in Berlin 21 Grad.
My German is not perfect, but it sounds good to me. And also they use this for traffic info. The next one, as you know, Spanish people are crazy about football. And there's a radio network, a large one in Spain called Cadena Ser. And they have trained a synthetic voice to become their kind of brand voice for football. So basically, Victoria, she comes in the linear broadcasts with kind of football facts, you know, and like halftime, these are the scores type of thing. And also they use it cleverly as an interactive Alexa skill. So you can talk to Victoria about your favorite team, like when is Barcelona playing the next game. So that was a fun way of doing it, I think. And we can listen to Victoria.
Hola, soy Victoria, la nueva colaboradora de Carrusel Deportivo. Soy la primera voz virtual en la historia de la radio y el fútbol es mi pasión. Vivo en la nube, así que estaré en el estudio con Garrido y también en tu casa a través de tu altavoz Alexa. ¿Hablamos?
Hablamos. Now Victoria is doing a little tour of the different radio stations that they have locally to kind of learn more about the local football teams. A little bit as a gimmick, but you know, they are just saying this is the first generation. Another example is from Swedish Radio, my own company. And this is actually a hybrid case. This is Eva, who is one of our linear presenters from P1, our spoken word channel. So we've been training a synthetic voice on her voice. Actually, she's been kind of recording an old long novel by August Strindberg, the famous Swedish writer. So, and this was the first generation of the voice, but we use it as a kind of a mix between actual phrases that she's been recording. In this case, it says in Swedish, "Thanks for listening. Here's an episode that we think you might like of," and then the show comes. And as we have so many different titles in our catalog, you know, thousands of different podcasts and radio programs or whatever, and this algorithm picks up kind of recommendations from that catalog, we use the synthetic voice for just saying that title. You understand what I mean? And you will certainly hear that it's a synthetic voice.
Tack för att du lyssnar. Här kommer ett avsnitt som vi tror du kommer gilla från
Cleo i P3.
So Cleo i P3 is the program's title. So it's a hybrid case. We actually have this in production, but on Apple TV, curiously enough. No, but and this is not in production, and we're not certain that we're going to do it. But of course, there would be a possibility for us to do a kind of more personalized greeting phrase in our app based on your geographic location. For example, could sound something like this.
God morgon. I Stockholm är det 4 grader och moln. Just nu. Rekordmånga delar cell i fängelser och häkten. Vi tror att du skulle gilla senaste avsnittet av söndagsintervjun.
Sounds synthetic, but is that good for transparency, maybe? Another example, this is a project that we're working with within the EBU, which is a news sharing project that we call European Perspective. And this project actually allows us to kind of share news from different public service media companies on each other's websites. So it's basically a little window to the rest of public service Europe. You can see the box here from one of the media companies. We have 16 members doing this together, audience-facing. More members are also in the kind of a back-end tool that we call Newspilot, where we share news from all of Europe. BBC are in there, and some of the big German companies as well. And in this tool, the Newspilot tool, which is a massive database of public service journalism, 1.6 million articles, thousands of new articles every day, we have automatic translation, also using synthetic voice. So I will go over and show in the internal display in the newsroom how we can translate, for example, this piece of news audio from Swedish Radio that is originally in Swedish automatically to English, using the transcription in the background. So it's not just our text that is translated, but also the audio.
Första pluton, givart!
De närmaste veckorna får landets blivande 18-åringar sitt mönstringsunderlag i brevlådan. Och sen...
It's about military conscription. Now I go over to English.
Only in the next few weeks will the country's future 18-year-olds receive their draft OS document in the mailbox, and since conscription was reintroduced, a record number will now be called for conscription. I'm not really into it.
You get the idea. I mean, it's a great way of also understanding journalism from the other providers. I can't speak any of the Baltic languages, for example. So all of a sudden I can understand them. We have a news feed in there from Suspilne, the Ukrainian public service broadcaster, and now I can understand their journalism. But as I said, this also meets the audiences, for example, on one of France's biggest news websites, France Info, Eric's company. And this is how the same story met the French audience.
Dans les prochaines semaines, les citoyens suédois qui auront 18 ans cette année recevront dans leur boîte aux lettres une lettre sur les étapes de leur enrôlement dans l'armée, dans le cadre du service militaire obligatoire. La conscription a été réintroduite en Suède il y a quelques années, et un nombre record de jeunes gens depuis vont être convoqués au printemps dans le cadre...
Ça va? La translation? Oui. And German in BR24 in Munich.
In den nächsten Wochen werden schwedische Bürgerinnen und Bürger, die in diesem Jahr 18 Jahre alt werden, einen Brief erhalten, der sie über die Einberufung zur militärischen Grundausbildung...
Yeah, I mean, they sound a little bit staccato, a little bit like glitchy, the audio. So now in the project we're working with the next generation voices that sound better and also better kind of voice switches. So it's, if it's a woman speaking, will be a female voice, and if it's man, yeah, a male voice. This is originally in French.
To be impassable. However, the main electrical interconnection between France and Spain passes here under the mountain. The tunnel, inaugurated in 2015, has doubled trade between the two countries. Dominique Milan supervised its construction.
The tunnel is used to route the cables of this interconnection, which completes the existing ones, which are aerial links.
So a little bit better experience, yeah? The Norwegians are proactive in this field. This is NRK, the public service provider in Norway, and they are using it in a clever way, synthetic voice, I think. On the linear TV, they, of course, when they are out, like their correspondent here has been out to the, after the earthquake in Turkey, and then if you have another Turkish person speaking, you will have the normal subtitles in the TV version, yeah? So we'll check that.
For et år siden. Herkes perişan dediğim gibi. Herkes çok perişan. Yani bu bir tek bize değil. Herkese mahsus olan bir olay.
Everything is miserable here, this builder says in Turkey. But if you go over to the radio version of the same clip, and this is one of the biggest like news shows from NRK, you will have a synthetic voice doing the voiceover for his translation.
I selve for et år siden. Herkes perişan dediğim gibi. Herkes çok perişan.
Alle miserable her. Livet vårt ikke verdt noe. Alt som skjer Guds vilje, og vi kan ikke gjøre noe fra
Yeah, so everybody is miserable here. They've had some reactions. I don't know if you have any NRK people here in the room, but I mean, for example, some people, oh, it sounds metallic, you know, and so there are audience reactions, of course. So the generative stuff in audio, I mean, it's used for so many different ways. We had a fascinating demo with this kind of generating audio ads that kind of sounded fantastic on radio days. You know, he could generate an ad about an IKEA bookshelf in like 30 seconds, and it sounded really good with different voices and music background and everything. So I'm glad I'm not in the ad agency business. We have seen an example from Switzerland. I know we have some Swiss people here. 2 weeks ago, they replaced all the content on their big linear channel, Couleur 3, with synthetic voices and also AI-generated or AI-assisted composed music, if that's a term. One of the biggest buzz things in the radio world has been this Radio GPT, because they are hell of good at marketing also. And they are doing something which is a little bit scary and fun. They are actually they have a tool that kind of scrapes the internet for content about a certain municipality or a certain city, town, and actually they convert those scripts into text that is presented by synthetic voices in a very conversational way, using also OpenAI technology. And then it just comes in and speaks a little bit about local news between the songs in a playlist.
There is a minority who say they won't participate, opting instead to love the wine they're with.
Ha ha ha. Good one. Live, made locally in Springfield, and 100% voiced and powered by AI. This is Radio GPT.
Yeah, you get the idea. I mean, we have 26 local radio stations across Sweden. Of course, you know, it could be a disruptive force. There are already some stations like that, but not generated by AI. Lastly, I just wanted to kind of map out some of these cases on a model that we've been working on a little bit in the Nordic AI journalism network to basically kind of weigh risks and talk about transparency. So, I mean, AI-generated local radio, the last example that we saw here, it would be audience-facing AI-generated content. Here, more below, newsroom tasks. For example, we've been hearing about using the chatbots for journalistic research. That would be on the lower end of that scale. The EBU news that we do, translated revoiced news in our internal system, would be down there, the case. And also the cloned voices that reads articles. I mean, it's an example of a rule-based system. It doesn't make stuff up. I mean, it just, the voice presents what's in the text. We will give, Lena will speak about that case. I would say here, editorial danger zone. Here, I mean, we know the risk of factual errors. Here, every time we use it also, in some sense, we have to remember that it needs human review. And here, of course, is, I mean, you need to be transparent to the audience, as also was mentioned by the previous speakers. And I'm so happy now that some of the standards about transparency are starting to emerge. For example, from this partnership of AI. And actually, in a lot of the cases that I mentioned, of course, we try to make it transparent to the audience that AI has actually been involved in the process. So, sorry about the little glitch for the presentation. Now I will leave the floor to one of the real pros here, and Lena from Schibsted, please come up to the stage.